billionaire lost everything in 6 minutes. But the woman mopping his floors held the one truth that could save his entire empire. High above Miami, a billionaire sat alone as his empire crumbled, alarms blaring, screens glowing red, the world closing in. In the middle of his darkest hour, the elevator doors opened, revealing the one person he had overlooked for years, a quiet black cleaning lady holding nothing but a mop, yet carrying the one truth that could save everything he was about to lose. Outside, Miami was drowning. Rain hammered the glass of Whitford Tower, turning the city into a blur of smeared neon and streaks of white headlights crawling along the wet streets. 49 stories up, the storm sounded softer, like a distant drum roll, muffled by reinforced windows and money. Inside the corner office, it was dead quiet. Graham Whitford sat alone behind a desk that could have been a dining table in another life, the kind you set for Christmas dinners and family birthdays. Tonight, it was covered in nothing but paper files, empty coffee cups, and a row of glowing monitors. All of them were red. Little red boxes. Little red words. Little red warnings that meant nothing to the average person, but to Graham might as well have been a doctor saying, "There's nothing more we can do." Error. Connection lost. Server failure. He stared at the screens as if glaring could force them back to green. His gray-blue eyes were bloodshot, ringed with the kind of tired that doesn't go away with sleep. He hadn't slept much in years anyway. "Come on," he muttered, fingers digging into the armrests of his leather chair. "Not tonight. Not tonight." Tonight was supposed to be his victory lap. For 30 years, Graham had climbed his way up from a kid stocking shelves in a Jacksonville warehouse to the head of one of the largest logistics companies in the country. Whitford Global moved everything: food, medicine, clothing, the invisible lifeblood of a modern world. If it had a barcode, chances were it had sat in one of his trucks or containers. And tomorrow morning, at 9 o'clock a.m., he was supposed to sign a deal that would make him a legend. A merger worth more money than he'd ever let himself say out loud. The kind of contract people wrote books about. The kind his wife used to joke would finally give us time to breathe. His wife. For a second, the office, the storm, the red lights all faded. He saw her in his mind the way she had been before the sickness, laughing in their kitchen, hair pulled back, a streak of flour on her cheek. Ellie had never cared about numbers on a screen. She cared if he made it home for dinner. He rarely did. Now she was a framed photo on his shelf, smiling at a man who hardly recognized himself. The red lights blinked again, more of them this time, spreading from one monitor to the other like a rash. A soft chime sounded, then another. Then they were ringing all together, overlapping into a digital chorus of bad news. Graham's stomach dropped. He leaned forward and grabbed the mouse, his hand shaking. Lines of code scrolled by, messages from systems deep inside his network. Server 3 offline. Regional hub, unresponsive. GPS data lost. In 6 minutes, he would think later, I watched 30 years of work catch fire. He pulled up maps of his depots across the country. One by one they went gray. No signal, no response. Trucks disappeared off the tracking grid like they'd driven into the ocean. This isn't real. He opened his email. Nothing from his tech team. He checked the time. 11:37 p.m. Most of his executives had gone home hours ago to families and warm houses and lives that weren't chained to blinking lights. Graham grabbed his phone and stabbed at the first name on his emergency list. Sam, pick up. Voicemail. He hung up, tried the head of IT, voicemail. He tried the operations director, voicemail. His jaw clenched, muscles jumping. You have got to be kidding me. He hurled the phone on the desk, where it skidded across a stack of reports and stopped against a laptop that had also joined the red chorus. Outside his floor-to-ceiling windows, Miami glowed like a floating island of light. Condos on Brickell lit up with rectangles of warm yellow. Somewhere people were pouring wine, watching late-night shows, tucking kids into bed. The city went on without him, indifferent. The city doesn't care if you fall, he thought bitterly. It just keeps breathing. He remembered the last conversation with his son Noah a month earlier. The boy, no, not a boy, 22 now, studying in London, had said, "Dad, you sound tired. Have you thought about just stopping?" Stopping, as if men like Graham knew how to stop. He sucked in a deep breath, forcing air into lungs that suddenly felt too small. His chest was tight. There was a dull pain near his left shoulder, the kind he'd started ignoring years ago. Focus. He forced his eyes back to the monitors. Another message flashed, this one different. A small window popped up in the corner of the main screen. The letters were simple, almost polite. Unauthorized access detected. Graham clicked it open. A stream of code ran down the screen like rain. This wasn't a power failure. This wasn't a storm knocking out a grid. Someone was inside his system. His office felt colder. The hum of the air conditioning became a roar in his ears. "We're being attacked," he whispered. He traced the breach back through layers of firewalls and security protocols he'd paid millions for. The path twisted and turned, bouncing off servers from Dallas to Detroit, then looping back to Miami. Back to this building. Back to him. He didn't understand the technical details, but he understood the feeling. It was like coming home to find your front door wide open and someone's muddy footprints on the carpet. A drop of sweat slid down his temple. His breathing quickened. "This deal goes through tomorrow," he told himself. "If we walk into that room with corrupted data, if we can't prove chain of custody, if any of this hits the news..." Stock prices, lawsuits, regulators, headlines, ruined. He pushed back his chair and stood up too fast. The room wobbled for a second, then settled. He walked to the window and pressed his hand against the glass. It was cold, despite the Florida heat on the other side. "You worked your whole life for this," he thought. "You gave your wife your absence, your son your voicemail, your body your sleep. For what?" So a stranger with a keyboard could end it in one night. Lightning flared somewhere over the bay, turning the clouds white for a heartbeat. He could see the reflection of his own face in the glass. The deep lines around his mouth, the gray at his temples, the knot of his tie pulled too tight. He looked like a man at his own funeral. Behind him, the computers chimed again. This time, a different tone. Sharper, more urgent. He turned. One of the monitors had gone black. Not red. Not green. Just blank. Then another. One by one, like candles snuffed out in a dark church, the screens went dark. The only light left in the office came from the city and the small lamp on the corner of his desk. For the first time in years, Graham didn't have anything to do. No calls to make. No reports to read. No numbers to stare at. Just a roaring in his ears and a hollow feeling in his chest that reminded him too much of the night the doctor had said his wife's name and then the word terminal. He sank back into his chair, suddenly feeling all 52 of his years. "Is this it?" he whispered to no one. "Is this how it ends?" He thought of calling Noah, but what would he say? "Hey, son, remember when I missed your school play? Your first game? Your mom's last Christmas? Well, turns out it didn't matter. Some kid in a basement somewhere just took everything anyway." His hand hovered over the phone, then dropped. He couldn't bear to sound this small in front of his own child. The office was too quiet now, the kind of quiet that made your thoughts too loud. And then, out of nowhere, came a sound that didn't belong to his world at all. A soft squeak, zo. Then another. Wheels on polished tile, the faint clink of glass bottles and plastic spray nozzles brushing against each other, a mop handle tapping gently against a metal bucket. Graham frowned and looked toward the doorway. Who in the world would be here at this hour? He saw a shadow first, stretching long across the floor, distorted by the angle of the hallway light. Then a figure appeared in the doorway, pushing a gray cleaning cart, wearing a simple uniform that matched the color of the Miami storm outside. For a second, they just stared at each other, the ruined billionaire and the night cleaner. He recognized her face in the way you recognize a painting you've passed 100 times without really seeing. He knew she worked nights. He knew someone pushed that cart. He just never thought about the person behind it. Tonight, that person had walked straight into the middle of his worst nightmare. And for the first time since everything started falling apart, Graham felt something he hadn't expected to feel at all. Not relief, not hope. Just the unsettling realization that the person standing in his doorway was someone he had never truly noticed in his entire life. The woman hesitated in the doorway, her hand resting lightly on the handle of her cart. The hallway light behind her cast a soft glow around her edges, making her look like she'd been carved out of the storm itself. Her uniform was simple, gray, a little faded at the collar, and her shoes squeaked with each careful step. She was in her late 30s, maybe early 40s, with warm brown skin and dark curls pulled back into a low knot at the nape of her neck. Her eyes, gentle, quiet, observant, took in the dimmed office, the black screens, and the man sitting in the middle of it all like a captain on a sinking ship. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice carrying a tired kindness that didn't belong in a place this cold. "I didn't know anyone was still here on this floor." Her words were polite, cautious, the way people speak when they've spent a lifetime stepping lightly around the world. She reached to back her cart out of the doorway, ready to disappear the way she always had. Graham snapped. "Not tonight," he muttered, rubbing his forehead. "I can't deal with this tonight." Her hand froze. She blinked, confused. He wasn't yelling, not exactly, but the frustration in his voice hit her like a slap. She lowered her eyes, a habit so old it lived in her bones. "I apologize, sir," she said. "I can come back later." The defeat in her voice should not have bothered him, but it did. Maybe it was the silence of the night, maybe the storm, maybe the fact that everyone else in the building had abandoned him. Whatever it was, guilt flickered across his chest. "It's fine," he said, trying to soften his tone. "You're not interrupting anything." He motioned vaguely at the dark monitors, the graveyard of blinking indicators still faintly pulsing red around the room. Her gaze drifted to the screens, and for a moment, something flickered in her expression. Something sharp. A kind of awareness he didn't expect. But just as fast as it appeared, it vanished under a layer of practiced humility. She took a single step inside. "Are you all right, sir?" It was such a simple question, an ordinary question. But no one had asked him that in months, maybe years. He opened his mouth to say yes, to give the automatic response people like him were trained to give. Instead, something cracked. "No," he said quietly. "No, I'm not." The confession hung in the air, suspended between a billionaire with everything to lose and a night cleaner who had nothing left to protect but her dignity. She didn't rush with sympathy. She didn't panic. She simply stood there, hands folded at her apron, waiting. "Everything I've built," he said, forcing the words out. "Everything I've worked for. It's falling apart. Tonight, right now. And I can't stop it." She looked at the screens again, at the frozen lines of code and the silent warnings. Her brow knit together, not in confusion, but in recognition. She moved closer, stopping a respectful distance behind his chair. "What happened?" she asked softly. He wasn't sure why he answered her. Maybe because she was the first human face he'd seen in hours. Maybe because she looked like someone who'd listened to pain before. Real pain. The kind that didn't fit into reports or balance sheets. "We're under attack," he said. "Some kind of cyber breach. My entire network is collapsing, and my security team isn't answering their phones." Her eyes lingered on a cascading error on the nearest screen. Then another. Then the routing map in the bottom corner. "That pattern," she murmured almost to herself. Graham turned. "What pattern?" She straightened immediately, as if caught stepping out of place. "Nothing, sir. I'm just—" "No," he said, sharper than he meant to sound. "You recognize something." She swallowed. It was clear she didn't want to overstep. People like her didn't. They'd been trained by life to shrink for comfort, to stay small, to never risk bothering the powerful. He softened his tone. "Please." For the first time that night, she met his eyes, not as an employee, but as a human being. "I've seen that kind of breach before," she said. "Years ago." He blinked. "You have?" She nodded slowly, choosing her words like someone who'd learned the cost of telling the truth. "Back when I worked at a military medical facility overseas, they targeted our life support monitoring systems. Same rhythm, same entry points." Graham stared. Military medical facility? Overseas? What was a woman like her doing pushing a cleaning cart at midnight? He didn't ask. Not yet. She moved closer to the nearest monitor. "This isn't random, sir. Whoever did this knows your system, knows where to hit it." Her confidence, quiet, steady, unforced, sent a ripple through him. It was the first moment all night he didn't feel completely alone. "What's your name?" he asked. "Naomi," she replied. "Naomi Carter." Naomi. The name felt gentle, warm, like someone who had seen storms and still knew how to be kind. He looked back at the dead screens and felt something shift inside him, not hope exactly, but something adjacent, a breath, a pause, a thin strand of possibility. "Naomi," he said slowly, "can you help me?" She hesitated, not out of fear for herself, but out of something deeper, something like caution or humility, or the memory of all the times people like her weren't believed. "I can try," she said softly. "If you want me to." He nodded. "I do." Naomi stepped forward, her shoes squeaking softly on the polished floor, and set her cleaning cart quietly against the wall. She wiped her hands on her apron, not out of nervousness, but the way someone prepares themselves before doing something that matters. She slid into the chair beside him, and for the first time since the night had begun falling apart, the office felt a little less cold. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, one invisible woman leaned toward the glowing screen, her eyes narrowing with focus, and Graham Whitford had no idea that the person he had barely noticed for years was about to become the only person who could save him. Naomi's fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of stepping into a place she never thought she'd enter again. The hum of the system cast a pale blue glow across her face, softening the deep lines carved by years of hard work and harder losses. The storm outside rattled the glass panels, and each flash of lightning sliced the room into bright white and midnight shadow. She expanded the system logs with a series of keystrokes so confident, Graham blinked twice. Those were not the hands of a janitor. Those were the hands of someone who had once handled machines the way a seasoned surgeon handles a scalpel. Deliberate, steady, calm. "There," she said quietly. He leaned closer. The screen showed a strange pattern threading through the data like a dark river cutting across a map. "I've seen this signature before," she murmured. "The way it loops through the system. It's not just an attack. It's someone trying to make it look like your internal routing systems are failing." Graham frowned. "Internal? So they're trying to frame my own infrastructure?" "Yes." She tapped the pattern again. "This was done by someone who knows your network, knows exactly where you're vulnerable." He felt a chill run up his spine at her certainty. The only people who knew his network that well were his top engineering team, his cybersecurity directors, his executive circle. Not outsiders, not amateurs. Someone who should have been protecting him. "Could it be one of my competitors?" he asked. Naomi shook her head. "If it were a competitor, the breach wouldn't look like this. They wouldn't try to mimic small internal errors. They'd shoot straight for your backbone servers, cut power, crash you instantly." He stared at her. "How do you know this?" She hesitated, long enough to tell him the answer carried ghosts. "I handled triage systems during overseas deployment," she said quietly. "Medical servers, life monitoring systems. We were targeted once. They tried to make it look like our own software glitched, but it wasn't a glitch. It was an infiltration." She said the word infiltration with a bitterness that hinted at what had happened after. He didn't push her for details. She clicked on an isolated file blinking in the corner. "But this isn't a government-level attack. This feels personal. Someone wants the company to look incompetent, not obliterated. They want to embarrass you, not destroy you." "Someone inside," Graham whispered. Naomi nodded. "Someone who has access to your internal passkeys and admin-level pathways." He stared at the screen, heart pounding. His own employees, his own directors, people he trusted with billions? Lightning cracked across the sky, lighting up the room in a flash like a camera shutter that capturing the moment his world tilted. Then, another alert blinked red. Naomi leaned forward. "This isn't just a hack. Look at this." She opened the error log to reveal routing failures stacking like falling dominoes. Shipment delays, medical supply routes freezing, pharmacy orders stuck mid-transit. People across the state were about to wake up to empty shelves and missing medication. "My God," Graham breathed. "If these deliveries don't go out tonight, patients will miss critical doses," Naomi said quietly. "Some elderly, some children." Her voice broke, just slightly. Graham turned to her. Her eyes were glossy with a grief that wasn't from tonight. It was older, deeper, worn into her soul like an etched scar. "You've done this before," he said softly. "You've seen what happens when medicine doesn't arrive on time." She didn't deny it. Instead, she breathed out slowly and sat up straighter, steadying herself. "I don't want that happening again," she said. "Not if I can stop it." That simple sentence, gentle, raw, without ego, landed with the weight of a vow. Graham watched her work as she traced the breach's origin point, isolating layers of false trails left behind by the attacker. Her movements were calm, precise, a quiet storm within the storm. "Wait," she whispered suddenly. "Look at this." She pulled up the access logs. One username flickered repeatedly across the timeline, triggering errors, rerouting data, opening back doors. The name made her go still, and then her face drained of color. "Do you know this login?" she asked. Graham leaned in. The screen displayed a name he knew far too well. Ethan Shaw. his chief operations officer, his late wife's closest friend, his right-hand man for 15 years, a man he trusted more than anyone. "No," Graham whispered, backing away from the screen. "No, he wouldn't do this." Naomi looked at him gently, with the kind of empathy only people who've been betrayed understand. "People aren't always who we believe they are," she said quietly. His throat tightened. "This has to be a mistake." "It's not," Naomi replied softly. "Look." She clicked another tab. The attacker had initiated a second infiltration. Deeper, stronger, a final blow meant to cripple the last of the unaffected servers. "He's doing it now," she said. "He's trying to finish what he started." The room lights flickered. The air conditioner sputtered. A low, buzzing hum trembled through the floor. Someone was accessing the system from inside the building. Naomi rose to her feet. Her eyes hardened in a way he hadn't seen before. "He's not alone," she whispered. "Someone else is helping him. Because this level of power down, it requires access to the building grid." Graham froze. A shadow moved outside the glass wall of the office. A silhouette. Tall. Still. Watching. The storm thundered behind them, but inside, the silence was suffocating. Naomi's breath caught as the silhouette shifted slightly, the faint glow from the hallway highlighting a jawline she recognized. Ethan. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was watching. Watching Naomi. His face was unreadable until the corner of his mouth curled into something cold, something that made Naomi's skin crawl. Graham turned slowly, but by the time he spun toward the glass wall, the silhouette was gone, vanished as if swallowed by the shadows. Naomi's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "He knows I found him." Another warning blared across the screens, louder, more urgent. Naomi's eyes widened. "He's initiating Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? Graham asked, voice cracking. She swallowed. "The one that brings the company down for good." And then, the emergency lights snapped on, bathing the room in harsh red. Someone was shutting the building down, and now they were being hunted. The emergency lights cast everything in a pulsing red glow, like the whole floor had been dropped into the heart of a warning siren. The air felt tighter, hotter, as if the building itself knew danger was crawling through its veins. Graham froze, breath shallow, staring at the screens as more systems blinked offline. Naomi didn't freeze. She stepped forward. "Don't just stand there," she said, her voice steady but urgent. "We still have time to prevent a full cascade." Her clarity cut through him. He followed. She moved with a calmness that didn't match the chaos. Her boots made soft, sure sounds against the floor as she navigated the space, checking ports, tracing cables, leaning in to read flickering monitors. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't guessing. She was diagnosing the system like someone tending to a wounded patient. Graham watched her with disbelief. This woman he'd walked past 100 times without seeing her face, now guiding him through the collapse of his entire empire. "Why are you helping me?" he asked suddenly, voice cracking under the weight of fear. Naomi paused for a fraction. Just a fraction. "Because there are hospitals waiting on your supplies," she whispered. "Children, elderly folks, people who don't have the luxury of your network failing tonight." It wasn't about him, not even a little. And somehow, that made her kindness hit harder. She crouched beside a server rack and pulled a small flashlight from her pocket, one she carried for cleaning night shifts when half the lights didn't work. The beam danced across a nest of wires until she found the damaged node. Then she did something unexpected. She took off her cleaning gloves and revealed another pair underneath. Thin, snug, anti-static gloves that had no business on the hands of a janitor. Graham blinked. "Where did you—" "Old habit," she muttered. "Never know when you'll need steady hands." She leaned in, tightening connections with practiced precision. A faint tremor of noise shuddered through the floor, like the building taking a ragged breath. Some lights flickered back on. Just for a second, but enough to show her touch was helping. "You just bought us time," Graham murmured. "It's not enough," Naomi replied. "But it's something." She rose and moved to the main interface. The breach was spreading faster now, rewriting pathways, erasing safeguards. It was like watching a predator devour its prey from the inside. The red alarms grew louder. Naomi didn't flinch. "Give me access to your internal admin console," she said. "You're not registered," Graham replied. "Then override it." That's not how this works." She turned, eyes firm. "Mr. Whitford, you either trust me right now, or you lose everything." Trust. The word throbbed in the air between them. He'd lost trust in Ethan. He'd lost trust in his board. He'd lost trust in the people closest to him. But Naomi Carter, this woman who had every reason to walk away, was offering her help without asking for anything in return. He swallowed hard and typed in an override code he hadn't used in years. When the system accepted it, Naomi slid into the seat. For a moment, she just sat there, her brown fingers resting lightly on the keyboard, gathering her breath like a pianist before a difficult piece. Outside, thunder cracked, the windows trembling with the force of the storm. Inside, her face settled into a look of total focus. "Okay," she whispered. "Let's peel this thing apart." Her hands flew. Graham stared. She moved like someone performing muscle memory from a life long buried, effortlessly flipping through code stacks, isolating corrupted lines, dissecting the trail the attacker left behind. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "Following the pattern back through the network," she said. "He's looping a false failover sequence through 3 dummy servers. Clever, but not clever enough." Her fingertips tapped a rhythm he didn't understand, but could feel in his bones. "I thought you said you worked medical systems," he murmured. "I did," she replied softly. "But when you're overseas, you learn more than one skill. Machines break. Lives depend on fixing them." A shadow crossed her face. Fleeting, heavy, but she didn't let it stay. "Naomi," Graham whispered, "why didn't you ever tell anyone you could do this?" She gave a dry, sad smile. "Tell who? They barely look at me long enough to see I'm human. You think they'd believe I could run circles around your tech division?" He didn't know what to say. She didn't wait for him to find something. Instead, she leaned forward and muttered, "Gotcha." She found the entry point, and the piggyback program Ethan had slipped in, and the hidden command meant to corrupt the backups. "You see this?" she said. "This is intentional. He's trying to bring down your distribution routes first. Then he'll hit your payroll servers. By morning, your entire workforce will think their jobs are gone." Graham's head spun. His breath turned shallow. "He wants total collapse," he murmured. "No," she said. "He wants something worse." "What's worse than losing everything?" "He wants you blamed for it," Naomi whispered. "He wants the world to think you mismanaged your own empire." A beat of silence. "You're sure it's him?" She nodded. "I've seen this signature before. He's sloppy when he panics. He always leaves a trace in the time logs." He staggered, gripping the back of a chair. He'd once trusted Ethan with the passcode to his private elevator. His late wife had treated Ethan like a brother. "Why?" he whispered. Naomi didn't answer. She couldn't. There were too many reasons someone might betray a man like Graham. Then a rumbling tone echoed from the central panel. Naomi's eyes widened. "He's coming back in. A deeper attack this time. If I don't block it." "Do it," Graham urged. She typed frantically, rerouting connections, building firewalls on the fly, clamping down on the entry points like patching holes in a sinking ship. Sweat trickled down her temple. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes darted across the screen. "He's fighting you," Graham said. "Let him try," she whispered. The two forces, her protection, his destruction, collided in a silent war of code. The air around them felt electrically charged, like the storm outside had seeped into the room. Finally, Naomi slammed one last command. The system shuddered, froze, then rebooted into partial lockdown. She exhaled shakily. That won't stop him for long, but it slows him down. Graham looked at her with awe and something else, gratitude powerful enough to silence him. "You didn't have to do this for me," he said quietly. "I'm not doing it for you," she replied, her voice soft, almost tender. "I'm doing it for the people who need those supplies tomorrow morning. They don't deserve to suffer because someone in your circle wants revenge." She stood. Her posture wavered slightly, fatigue creeping in, but her resolve didn't. As she stepped away from the station, a faint tapping echoed from the glass wall again. Someone had moved closer. Graham and Naomi turned at the same moment. No silhouette this time. No shape waiting in the shadows. Just a small, folded piece of paper slipped under the office door. Naomi bent, picked it up, unfolded it. 6 words stared back at her in block letters. "Stop now, or you're next." She didn't speak. She didn't have to. The message chilled the air more than the storm ever could. She looked up, eyes hardening. "He knows I'm helping you," she whispered, "and he wants me gone." The lights flickered again. Somewhere below them, a generator hummed back to life. Somewhere above them, a door slammed. Someone was moving, fast, purposeful. Naomi took a slow breath. "We keep going," she said. "I'm not backing down." And in that moment, Graham realized something quietly astonishing. This woman, this invisible, overlooked janitor, had more courage in her than the entire executive floor combined. And she had just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. The hallway outside the server room felt different now, colder, heavier, like the storm's tension had seeped into the walls. Every emergency light pulsed in slow, haunting waves, washing the white tile floor in red. Graham stepped toward the doorway, but Naomi lifted a hand, stopping him with nothing more than the quiet authority in her eyes. "Wait," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but it carried weight. She peered through the small glass panel in the door. The corridor was empty, too empty. No cleaning carts, no security guards, no stray notebooks left by interns. The silence was unnatural, a silence born from people clearing out fast. Someone wanted privacy on this floor. Naomi turned back to the room. "He's still here." Graham didn't ask how she knew. He could feel it too. An unseen presence pressing in from the corners of the building like a predator circling its prey. He stepped closer to her. "We need to call security." "They're blind right now," she said. "His tampering shut down half the cameras. He'll know long before they do." The hum of failing servers echoed around them. Naomi returned to the central console, reviewing Ethan's digital footprints again. The pattern was unmistakable. Intentional sabotage, layered and rehearsed. But then, in the middle of the data stream, another signature flashed. A symbol. A string of characters Naomi had hoped never to see again. Her breath caught. She leaned closer, hand trembling for the first time tonight. "No," she whispered. "What is it?" Graham asked. Naomi hesitated, fighting memories she had locked away for years. "It's not just Ethan. This signature belongs to a partner group, the kind that taught him everything he knows. He has outside help? Yes, and not small-time hackers. These are corporate saboteurs." She paused. They destroyed a humanitarian network overseas once, left a whole region without medical support for months. Graham felt the floor tilt beneath him. And now they're here? Her jaw tightened, helping him finish what he started. Just then, the lights in the hallway flickered again. A flash, a fade, a slow, deliberate dimming, as if someone was tampering with voltage levels. Then, a soft tap, a faint shift, a reflection in the glass. Naomi snapped her head toward the window. A figure moved past, slow and deliberate, steps echoing like a metronome of dread. His silhouette cut across the glow of the emergency lights, tall, lean, unmistakably confident. Ethan Shaw. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding anymore. His head turned slightly, just enough for Naomi to see the cruel curve of a smirk under the shadows. Graham's breath caught. "He's taunting us." "No," Naomi whispered. "He's warning me." Ethan paused at the end of the hallway, lifting a phone to his ear. He didn't look at them, but Naomi could feel his attention like a knife pressed to the back of her neck. He said something, too quiet to hear. Then he stepped into the stairwell and disappeared. Graham turned to Naomi. "We have to go after him." "No." Her voice was fierce. "That's what he wants." "How do you know?" "Because he didn't run. He wanted us to see him." She closed her eyes. "He's setting a trap." Graham paced anxiously, running a hand through his graying hair. "Then what do? We can't just stay here waiting for him to bring the whole building down." Naomi steadied herself. "We keep working. We expose him. You'll need proof before you confront anyone on your board. And I can get you that proof." "You're risking your job." "I'm risking more than that," she admitted quietly. Graham didn't press her. He could see it in her eyes. This fight touched something deep inside her, something from a past life she had walked away from. As she turned back to the keyboard, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A single message. "You were warned." She locked the screen without comment, but Graham noticed the tremor in her hand. "Naomi," he said softly, "you don't have to do this." Her expression shifted. Something warm, something honest. "Yes, I do." And for a brief moment the storm outside softened, as if listening. Naomi dove back into the system, ignoring the sounds of the building shifting around them. She traced Ethan's route deeper through the servers, following breadcrumbs left behind by someone who was brilliant but arrogant, the worst kind of saboteur. "He's accessing the redundancy drives," she said. "If he gets those, he'll wipe every backup. No way to recover anything." "Can you stop him?" Graham asked. "I can slow him down," she said. "But he's faster than before, more desperate." Thunder boomed outside. A long, low vibration shook the windows. And then, footsteps. Soft, measured, approaching. Naomi froze. The steps stopped right outside the doorway. Graham instinctively moved closer to her. The doorknob twitched. Just once. As if someone was testing it. Then slowly, agonizingly, it turned. The door creaked open a single inch. Naomi's heart pounded in her ears. A shadow spilled through the gap on the floor, stretching across the tile like a dark hand reaching toward them. But when the door swung open fully, no one was there. Just an empty hallway. Graham exhaled sharply. "What is he doing?" Naomi stared at the open doorway, puzzled. "He's close, but he's not trying to get in." "What is he trying to do?" She looked back at the screen, at the spreading corruption, at the collapsing servers, at the timestamp that pulsed with each passing second. "He's stalling," she whispered, "keeping us here, distracting us." "From what?" She didn't answer, because at that exact moment, The console erupted with a new string of code, something violent, something fast, something designed to bypass everything she had just repaired. Her stomach dropped. Ethan had launched a second attack, a deeper one. And this time, he wasn't hiding his signature at all. "He wants you to know it's him," Naomi said, voice tight. "He's not afraid anymore." As she typed furiously, chasing the spreading infection, one new alert appeared, one that froze her blood cold. Remote access authorized. User ESH4W. He had gained full control over the entire building. Naomi whispered, barely audible, "Oh no." And then the lights clicked off. The floor plunged into darkness. Every emergency light died at once, snuffed out like candles. A cold voice echoed from the hallway, dripping with confidence. "You should have stayed invisible, Naomi." Naomi's breath caught. He was here, closer than ever. Graham reached for her arm, but the darkness swallowed everything. For a moment, there was only the storm outside, rain slamming against the glass like a frantic fist, wind howling through the cracks high above Miami. Inside the 49th floor, everything was pitch black. No hum of servers, no blinking lights, no soft glow beneath the door, just suffocating silence, thick and heavy like a wet blanket thrown over the entire building. Naomi held her breath, feeling the darkness press against her skin. She'd been in blackouts before, combat zones where power grids collapsed, hospitals running on failing generators. But this felt worse, because this time, someone had turned off the lights on purpose. A faint metallic click echoed down the hallway. Graham whispered, "Naomi, where is he?" She didn't know, but she felt him, a presence moving the way a shadow moves, quiet, patient, deliberate. Then, a soft scrape of a shoe on tile. Naomi grabbed Graham's sleeve, pulling him toward the wall where the emergency exit map glowed faintly in luminescent paint. It wasn't much light, but it was enough to see her own trembling hand and Graham's pale, terrified face. "If he can see us," she murmured, "we move." "Move where?" "Anywhere he isn't." A low chuckle rose from the hallway. It bounced off the walls, echoing in a way that made it impossible to track. "You really think you can outrun this, Naomi?" Graham stiffened. "Ethan, what do you want?" "Justice," the voice replied. "And maybe a little payback. You took everything from me, Graham. Your wife picked you. Your company picked you. Investors picked you. I built this place, every system, every connection, and I got crumbs." His tone sharpened, icy and confident. "You never even looked at me the way you look at her right now." Naomi felt Graham tense beside her. "Leave her out of this," Graham snapped. "Oh, but she put herself right in the center," Ethan said, sticking her hands in things she didn't understand, touching servers she shouldn't have touched, acting like she belongs here. He paused, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "She doesn't." Something inside Naomi cracked, because she had heard versions of that sentence her entire life, from school hallways to job interviews, from neighborhoods that pretended not to see her to supervisors who never learned her name. She had carried that weight for so long the words should have rolled off her back. But tonight, in the dark, they stung differently. She straightened. "I don't need you to think I belong," she called out. "I'm here because people depend on this company. You're hurting them, not him." Silence. Then Ethan's laugh returned, low, mocking. "You think you're a hero? You're a janitor, a nobody. You should have stayed in your lane." Graham stepped in front of her, as if shielding her with his body, even though neither could see more than a few inches ahead. "You don't know anything about her," he said. "Oh, but I do," Ethan replied. "Naomi Carter, Liberty City, 1-bedroom apartment, 2 jobs, widow, lost a child." Naomi's breath froze. Graham turned slowly toward her, his face hidden and his shock unmistakable. "How do you know that?" he whispered. Ethan didn't hesitate. "I make it my business to know who's poking around where they shouldn't. Your little janitor friend had quite a life before she came here. And somehow, she thought she could crawl out of that and play hero tonight." Naomi's hands balled into fists, not out of fear, but out of something deeper, stronger, a refusal to hide in the dark ever again. She stepped forward before Graham could stop her. "You can say whatever you want about me," she said, her voice steady. "But don't pretend you're doing this because you were overlooked. You're doing it because you think you deserve power more than anyone else." A faint shuffle echoed closer. Naomi swallowed, eyes darting through the darkness. "You're not invisible anymore, Naomi," Ethan murmured. "Tonight, I see you, and I'm giving you one chance." A beat of silence. "Walk away. Right now. Leave Whitford Tower, never come back, and I might forget you stuck your nose in places it didn't belong." Graham moved beside her. "Don't listen to him." But Naomi wasn't listening to Graham. She was listening to her own heartbeat. Steady, firm, alive. The same heartbeat that had carried her through deployments, through grief, through nights she cleaned empty offices, while people walked past her like she was part of the wall. She took a breath. "No," she said softly. "I'm not walking away." The air shifted. Ethan inhaled sharply, and she could hear the disappointment in the sound. "I hoped you'd say that." A soft beep cut through the dark. Naomi spun around, eyes widening. He had activated something. An override signal. A clearance key. Or worse. The backup generators hummed for 1 second, 2, 3, and then the hallway lights surged to life. Naomi squinted against the sudden brightness. Ethan Shaw stood 20 feet away, tall, immaculate suit. Sharp eyes gleaming with both triumph and malice, hands in his pockets like he was hosting a dinner party. And flanking him, on either side, were 2 security officers she recognized, men who should have been guarding the lobby, except their badges were missing. She sucked in a breath. Ethan had flipped them, or bought them, or threatened them. He smiled. "Let's not pretend anymore," he said. "This is my building tonight." Graham stepped forward, fury shaking through him. "You're destroying people's lives. Do you understand what you're doing?" "I understand perfectly." Ethan shrugged. "This company should have been mine years ago, but you couldn't see talent unless it came in a $3,000 suit." His gaze slid to Naomi. "And you should have blended into the background like you were supposed to." Naomi felt her blood heat with a fierceness she hadn't felt in years. "I stopped doing what I was supposed to when I buried my family," she said quietly. "I learned life's too short to let people like you decide my worth." A flicker of something, annoyance, maybe even regret, crossed Ethan's face. Then he nodded at the 2 guards. "Bring them." Naomi stepped in front of Graham, and every light in the hallway exploded into blinding white. Not broken. Triggered. Automatic emergency lockdown. The floor shuddered as doors slammed shut across the building. Naomi twisted, eyes wide. "Graham, run!" But the guards were already moving. Fast. And Ethan's cold voice filled the hallway like smoke. "You should have walked away while you still could, Naomi." The chase had begun. The 2 guards lunged forward, their heavy boots pounding against the polished floor. Naomi grabbed Graham's sleeve and yanked him down the hallway, her breath tight, her heartbeat drumming in her ears. The emergency doors had sealed behind them, turning the whole 49th floor into a maze of red-lit corridors. "Stairs! Now!" she hissed. They sprinted around a corner just as one guard swung an arm toward Graham, missing by inches. Naomi shoved open the stairwell door, pulled Graham through, and slammed it shut behind them. The metal rang like a bell in the hollow shaft, but it wouldn't hold long. "They're working for him," Graham panted. "My own security." "They're scared of him," Naomi replied. "Or paid. Or both." She didn't slow down. "We need to get higher, up top. Less places for them to corner us." Graham stumbled but followed, their feet echoing through the stairwell, climbing step after step until the air turned warmer, thicker, coated with the faint humidity leaking from rooftop vents. Behind them, the stairwell door slammed open again. "They're coming," Naomi whispered. She shoved open the rooftop access door, and in an instant, the humid Miami night hit them like a wave. Warm, salty air whipping their clothes as the storm hammered the city below. The rooftop was huge, empty, windswept. Water pooled along the edges, reflecting flashes of lightning that split the sky open. Up here, the city stretched like a galaxy of lights beneath a stormy sky. Naomi locked the door behind them, buying a few seconds. Graham bent over, hands on his knees. "I never thought I'd be running for my life on my own roof." Naomi stood tall despite the wind. "You're not the only one running tonight." He looked at her, confused. She didn't elaborate. Not yet. The rooftop lights flickered, casting long, trembling shadows across the gravel surface. "Ethan won't chase us up here," Graham said hopefully. "Too exposed." But Naomi shook her head. "He doesn't need to chase. He wants time. He wants control. Cornering us is just a game to him." A beat of silence passed, then a loud metallic thud from behind the door. They both jumped. "Naomi," Graham whispered. "He's serious, isn't he?" She turned her face toward the skyline, letting the wind push her braids gently back. There was sweat on her brow, sadness in her eyes. "He's been planning this longer than you think," she said softly. "Something like this doesn't happen in one night." Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating the rooftop in a stark white glare. For a moment, Graham saw her clearly. The strength in her stance, the pain she tried to hide, the quiet resilience etched in every line of her face. "You've seen people like him before," he said quietly. "Yes," she whispered. "People who think the world owes them everything. People who'll do anything to take it." Wind whipped around them, carrying the smell of rain and hot metal. Graham swallowed hard. "Naomi, who were you before this job?" Her eyes softened. For the first time that night, the fear, the tension, the running, everything paused. "I was someone who believed she could save people," she said. "I was someone who thought being good would be enough." She took a breath. "But sometimes being good means losing everything anyway." There was a heaviness in her voice that told him she wasn't being dramatic. She was remembering something real. The rooftop door rattled again, louder this time. They both flinched. "Naomi," he said gently, "whatever happened to you, you're still that person, the one who saves people." She didn't answer. Instead, she walked toward the edge of the rooftop, the wind tugging at her shirt as she surveyed the sprawling city below. "All those lights," she murmured. "Every one of them holds someone who needs something. Food, medicine, a roof, a second chance." She paused. "People don't realize how fragile things are, how fast everything can fall apart." Her voice held the weight of someone who had lived through exactly that. He stepped beside her. "And yet you stayed. You helped clean the floors of a company you never told your story to. You saved strangers without them even knowing. Naomi, why? Why stay invisible?" She turned to him, and for the first time he saw tears shining in her eyes. "Because sometimes it's easier to be invisible than to hurt again." A crack split across the night sky, thunder rolling over them like a wave. Naomi blinked the tears away. I lost my husband because a medical convoy never made it in time, she whispered. And my little girl, because the military server crashed during a power outage overseas. Systems matter. Logistics matter. Timing matters. Her voice trembled. People think these things are just numbers on screens, but they aren't. They're lives. Graham's chest tightened. This woman, the one scrubbing floors at midnight, had carried losses heavier than anything he'd imagined. Before he could respond, the rooftop door screeched open. The guards stepped out first. Behind them, Ethan Shaw, suit drenched from the rain, hair plastered to his forehead, eyes sharp and electric with triumph and fury. He clapped slowly. Well, he said, stepping onto the roof like he owned it, isn't this touching? Naomi stiffened. Graham moved closer to her instinctively. Ethan smiled darkly as he walked toward them, flanked by his two hired muscle. It's poetic, really, he drawled. You two up here, staring at the world, like you still have any say in what happens next. The guards spread out, forming a wall. Naomi stepped forward, not backing away this time. What do you want, Ethan? She demanded. Ethan's eyes glinted. What I've always wanted. To watch everything fall exactly the way it should have years ago. And hurting innocent people is part of that? She shot back. Innocent? He laughed. Come on, Naomi. Don't pretend you're doing this for the greater good. You're doing this because you want to feel important again. The words struck deeper than she expected, but she didn't flinch. I'm doing this because I know what happens when systems fail, she said quietly, and because someone has to stop you. A moment of stillness. Then Ethan lowered his voice, each syllable dripping venom. You're not stopping anything. Lightning exploded overhead, and in that flash of light, Naomi saw something behind Ethan. A shift in the code display on the rooftop's maintenance screen behind the generator box. Her eyes widened. I know what he's doing, she whispered. Graham turned. What? What do you see? She took a step back, heart hammering. He's tying the server collapse to the building grid, she said. When the final redundancy fails, the tower goes dark, completely. Emergency systems included. Graham's face drained of color. He's trying to shut us in. No, Naomi said, breath catching. He's trying to bury the evidence. Ethan's grin stretched wider. 10 minutes, he said, and everything you ever built, Graham, will be blamed squarely on you. Naomi stepped in front of Graham. You won't get away with this. His expression hardened. I already have. Thunder shook the sky. Wind roared around them, and the timer on the maintenance screen began counting down. Naomi's voice trembled as she whispered, We're running out of time. And for the first time that night. Graham Whitford reached for her hand, not out of fear, but out of trust. A trust that would soon decide whether they lived long enough to fight back. The countdown on the rooftop maintenance panel blinked mercilessly. 09:58. 09:57. The wind howled around them, carrying the heavy scent of ocean salt and an incoming summer storm. Naomi wiped the rain from her face, her braids whipping against her shoulders. Graham stood beside her, one hand still locked around hers, tight, fearful but ready. Down below, Miami glowed like a bowl of molten gold, unaware that the tower watching over it was about to collapse into darkness. Ethan took one slow step forward, the rain soaking his suit until it clung to him like a second skin. You can't stop the system now, he said, voice slick as oil. Not from up here. The fail-safes are locked behind internal credentials you'll never get. Naomi took a breath so steady it surprised even her. That's where you're wrong. She stepped away from Graham and dropped to one knee beside the rooftop maintenance panel, fingers flying over the controls. The metal casing vibrated as the tower's grid rerouted under Ethan's override. Graham crouched beside her. Can you reverse it? No, she whispered, but I can redirect it. Ethan scoffed. Redirect? To what? Naomi's eyes locked briefly with his, and the fire burning behind her calm facade made Ethan's smirk fade. To you. Ethan's guards tensed. Graham straightened. What does that mean? Graham asked quietly. Naomi didn't look up. If I can isolate his access point, I can trace exactly where he's tunneling from. Then I feed the grid failure into his own credentials. The building flags him as the saboteur. Ethan's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected that. But Naomi wasn't finished. And once the system thinks he's the source, she continued, it'll lock him out of the entire building, physically and digitally. Ethan's expression snapped from confidence to alarm. He lunged forward, but Graham did something he never imagined himself capable of. He stepped in front of Naomi. No, Graham growled, voice low and shaking with equal parts fear and fury. You won't touch her. For a moment, Ethan froze, not because Graham blocked him, but because he saw something he hadn't predicted. A billionaire protecting a janitor. Amazing, Ethan scoffed, recovering. Look how far you've fallen, taking orders from a woman who scrubs your floors. Naomi's hands paused only for a second. The words stung, deep old scars rising to the surface, but she breathed through it. She'd heard worse her whole life, and she'd survived worse. Still trying to convince yourself you're above other people? She replied, her voice soft but razor-sharp. Funny, considering how low you had to crawl to get here. Ethan's eyes ignited with rage. He nodded to the guards. Get them! Both men charged. Naomi jerked the final wire on the panel. Sparks snapped, lights flickered, and a loud metallic clunk echoed beneath their feet as the building's emergency grid rerouted. The countdown froze at 0741. Graham grabbed Naomi's arm. What did you just do? I bought us time, she said. But we have seconds before they reach us. Run! They sprinted across the rooftop, water splashing beneath their shoes, guards pounding behind them. Ethan shouted orders drowned by thunder. Naomi's lungs burned, but she didn't look back. Graham stayed close, breath ragged but determined to keep up. At the far end of the rooftop stood a maintenance shed, small, metal, half-rusted from years of storms. Naomi burst inside, dragging Graham with her. She slammed the door shut and dropped the heavy lock bar with a loud clang. Outside, fists hammered against the metal. They'll break through, Graham panted. Not before I finish this. Naomi knelt at the backup interface inside the shed. Remember the fake server I set up earlier? Graham nodded. I'm about to use it to lure him into one final mistake. She connected her portable drive, fingers trembling but precise. The shed rattled as the guards rammed the door again. Graham pushed his weight against it, grunting with the effort. What mistake? He asked, breathless. The one he'll never see coming, she whispered. He thinks he has you. He thinks he's already won, so he'll chase the biggest prize I put in front of him. She typed rapidly. What prize? Graham pressed. The master control key, she said. A fake one. If he tries to take it, the system forces him to reveal every server he used to attack us. Graham blinked. And if he doesn't try? He will, Naomi said without hesitation. People like Ethan never resist grabbing power. Outside, metal screeched. The lock bar bent inward. Naomi, just hold the door. The shed lights flickered as Naomi executed the final line of code. In that very second, her screen flashed. Remote access detected. Suspect. Ethan Shaw, trace-initiated lockdown engaged. Naomi exhaled shakily. He took the bait. Graham felt something heavy lift from his chest. Then he's trapped? Digitally, yes, Naomi replied. Physically, we're about to be. The metal door finally burst inward. The two guards barreled inside, rain-soaked and furious. Graham raised his arms instinctively, but Naomi stepped in front of him, breath steady, eyes unblinking. Ethan appeared behind them, drenched, chest heaving with frustration. "What did you do?" he snarled. Naomi held up her portable drive, the tiny screen still glowing. "I showed the system who you really are." Ethan lunged, rage boiling over. But the rooftop floodlights snapped on at full power. Every guard stopped. Ethan froze mid-step. Because standing behind him, in the rooftop doorway, were two uniformed building security supervisors and a city emergency response tech team. Someone must have received the grid failure alert. Naomi didn't waste a second. She pointed straight at Ethan. "He's the one who attacked the system. He's the one trying to shut the tower down." Ethan spun, panicked. "Don't listen to her. She's lying. She's just a janitor." The emergency tech cut him off sharply. "Sir, the system flagged your credentials as the source of the attack. You need to come with us." Ethan's face drained of every color. No, that's impossible." He stepped back, right into the guards who had come to detain him. Naomi's knees weakened with relief. Graham reached for her. "You did it," he whispered. "You stopped him." But Naomi shook her head. "This isn't over. That countdown, he tied it to more than just this building. We have to get downstairs, now." "Why?" "Because Ethan never intended to destroy just Whitford Tower." She swallowed hard. "He wanted to destroy everything connected to it." Graham's voice broke. "The entire company?" Naomi nodded. "Unless we move fast." Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the rooftop like a battlefield. For the first time tonight, they were no longer running from danger. They were running toward it, together. Rain poured off their clothes as they burst through the rooftop stairwell door and pounded down the concrete steps. The entire tower felt alive, groaning, humming, trembling under the weight of something enormous happening deep inside its systems. Every emergency light flickered red along the walls, painting their shadows long and frantic. Graham clutched the railing as they descended, his breath ragged but determined. Naomi moved faster, focused, controlled, a woman who had run through chaos before and survived it. Her wet sneakers squeaked against the steps. Her portable drive swung in her hand like a lifeline. "How much time do we have?" Graham shouted over the echo of their footsteps. Naomi didn't look back. "If Ethan tied the countdown to the main grid, we've got less than 15 minutes before every server connected to Whitford Logistics goes dark." "That's thousands of shipments," Graham said, the horror hitting him like a punch. "Hospitals, shelters, pharmacies, and every medication they depend on," Naomi finished. "That's why we can't slow down." They sprinted through the 12th floor, then the 6th, then down to the lobby level. But before they could turn toward the control center, a new alarm blared overhead, a piercing metallic howl that made Graham stop cold. Naomi grabbed his sleeve. "Graham, no, don't stop!" "What is that?" he asked. She swallowed. "It means the backup servers have already been triggered." His face paled. "Triggered how?" "Manually." Her meaning sank in slowly, painfully. Someone was already in the server room. Someone Ethan had planted. Naomi broke into a full sprint. They raced across the empty lobby, dodging overturned chairs and the puddles of water dripping from the broken ceiling tiles. The building felt abandoned, hollow, like every heartbeat inside it had been stolen in the night. Graham pressed the elevator button. Naomi grabbed his arm. "No elevators. If someone's tampered with the power, they could trap us between floors." He didn't argue. They ran for the stairwell leading down to the underground garage. As they descended, the lighting changed from corporate white to a dim, eerie yellow. The scent shifted too: oil, hot concrete, and something else. Something metallic, cold, unsettling. By the time they reached the garage door, Naomi froze. The entire garage was dark except for a few flickering bulbs. Shadows stretched across the floor in long, broken stripes. Cars sat like silent silhouettes. And somewhere in that darkness, a small blue light blinked. Graham whispered, "What is that?" Naomi stepped forward. "The fail-safe transmitter." She knelt slowly, lowering herself beside a pillar. The blue light pulsed like a heartbeat. "That device shouldn't be here," she murmured. "This isn't part of your building's system." Graham crouched beside her. "So who put it?" A sharp metallic clatter echoed from behind a row of parked sedans. Naomi's breath caught. She motioned for him to stay low. Then she moved. Her steps were silent, one careful foot in front of the other, weaving between the vehicles. Her heart hammered in her ears, but she kept going. Graham crawled along the floor beside her path, trying to follow without making noise. They reached the edge of the parked row. Naomi peeked around the bumper. A shadow moved. A figure in black clothing crouched near the central electrical panel, hands deep inside the wiring. Naomi recognized the posture, the equipment, the speed. Another internal tech, another insider. She felt her stomach drop. "It's not just Ethan," she whispered. "He had help." Graham's voice cracked. "Can you stop them?" "Maybe, but I need to draw them out first." "How?" Naomi took a deep breath, and then she stepped into the open. Her voice echoed through the garage, firm and steady. "I know what you're doing," she said, "and I can reverse it." The figure jerked upright. A man's voice answered, shaky and strained. "You shouldn't be down here." Naomi didn't move. "You're shutting down the last grid link. If you finish that, every connected system goes down with it." "You don't understand," the man snapped, stepping into the dim pool of light. "They gave me no choice." "Who?" But the man shook his head violently. "It doesn't matter. Just walk away. Please, I don't want to hurt anyone." Naomi softened. "Then don't. You can stop this." He hesitated. His wrench trembled in his hand. For a moment, just a moment, she saw the guilt in his eyes, the conflict, the fear. She stepped closer. That was when the device in his pocket beeped. His eyes widened in panic. "Oh no!" Naomi froze. "What was that sound?" He backed up toward the electrical panel. "I can't stop it now." "Stop what?" He swallowed. "The logic bomb." Naomi's pulse spiked. "How long?" "Less than a minute." Graham stood from behind the car. "What does that mean?" She turned to him, face grave. "If the bomb reaches the core system, it'll wipe everything Ethan ever touched. All the evidence, all the records, and every operating system tied to your company." Graham swayed where he stood. "Naomi, what do we do?" She took his face in her hands, pressing her forehead to his for one steadying second. "Trust me." Then she ran. She bolted toward the electrical panel, her shoes splashing through puddles. Graham called after her, but she didn't slow. The man tried to grab her arm. She spun away, slammed the panel door open, and saw the countdown glowing like fire. 0047, 0046, 0045. Her mind raced. She couldn't disable it. She couldn't destroy it. But she could reroute it. She typed furiously, sweat mixing with rain down her temples. Graham dropped beside her. "Naomi! Hold the wires steady!" He obeyed without a second thought. His hands trembled, but he didn't let go as she worked. The man backed away slowly, collapsing against the wall, covering his face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Save it," Naomi muttered. "I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to stop a disaster." The countdown hit 0018. Naomi yanked a final wire, twisted 2 connectors, and slammed her portable drive into the panel's port. "Please, please work," she whispered. The screen glitched. The countdown paused. Then, override accepted threat, redirected system restoring. The numbers disappeared. Graham's breath left him in a shuddering exhale. The man who had helped Ethan slid to the floor, crying softly. Naomi leaned against the panel, her head falling back against the cold metal. Graham moved to her side, kneeling, still shaking. "You saved it," he whispered. "You saved everything." Naomi opened her eyes and met his. For the first time since the night began, she allowed herself to breathe. "It's not over," she said softly. "But we finally have a chance." Graham nodded. "And we'll finish it together." Naomi looked out at the blinking lights, the dark garage, the wreckage of the night. Then she pushed herself to her feet, and together they climbed back toward the light of the tower, toward the truth waiting above them. Water dripped from their hair and sleeves as they pushed through the stairwell door and stepped into the dim corridor leading to the core server room. The building hummed with a low, uneasy vibration, like it was holding its breath along with them. Naomi's steps were quick but steady, her portable drive still clutched tightly in her hand. Graham kept close beside her, one palm hovering behind her back, as if afraid she might vanish into the dark. They reached the reinforced door of the server room. Inside, a faint glow seeped out from beneath it, like the last flicker of a candle fighting to stay alive. Naomi paused, fingers hovering over the access keypad. "You ready?" Graham asked, his voice rough. "No," she admitted. "But we don't have a choice." She pressed the master override. The lock clicked. The door opened. A burst of cold air rushed past them. The server room, usually warm from thousands of humming machines, was nearly freezing. The rows of metal racks stretched out like steel soldiers, blinking weakly, struggling to stay online. The overhead lights flickered. Graham exhaled a shaky breath. "Dear God, it's worse than before." Naomi didn't respond. She was already running. Her footsteps echoed sharply against the spotless floor as she reached the central console. The monitors blinked red, then black, then red again. Warning messages scrolled. System failure. Core breach. Data corruption detected. Graham hovered behind her, terrified but helpless. "Tell me you can fix this." Naomi didn't look back. "I won't let this company fall. Not after everything we survived tonight." She plugged in her drive. The screen flashed. Access granted. Countermeasures engaged. Her hands moved faster than Graham had ever seen, faster than their entire IT team on their best day. Naomi's braids swung with the speed of her movements, her brow furrowed in fierce concentration. Sweat and rain mixed on her skin as she typed commands with military precision. Then, a harsh alarm blared. "What is that?" Graham asked. Naomi's face tightened. The bomb from the garage wasn't the only one. Ethan planted multiple triggers. If I stabilize this core section too fast, the whole grid could collapse. Graham swallowed. "What do you need?" "Time," she said. "And you?" He didn't hesitate. "Whatever it takes." She pointed toward a wall of cables and emergency switches. "Hold those wires steady. If they cross, even for a second, we lose everything." He gripped the wires tightly, his knuckles white, the cold metal vibrating against his palms. The hum of electricity buzzed against his sleeves. Naomi inhaled, then dove back into the console. The room grew louder. Servers revving, cooling systems fighting to stay alive. Alarms screaming in digital chaos. Naomi typed until her fingers cramped. The building flickered. Lights dimmed. The console sparked. "Naomi!" Graham shouted. "I'm all right," she said, though her voice trembled. "Just keep holding it." She entered one final line, and the world seemed to pause. The red screens froze. The alarms silenced. The room fell eerily still. Then, core restoration in progress. Graham's breath caught. Is it working? Naomi leaned closer, eyes scanning the data. Yes, wait. Light exploded across the monitors. One by one, every server flickered from red to green. The overhead lights steadied. The cooling units hummed back to normal, and the last line appeared. System fully restored. Threat neutralized. Naomi stepped back, chest rising and falling. For a moment, she didn't even seem to believe it. Then her body gave out just a little, her knees buckling. Graham caught her before she fell. You did it, he whispered, holding her close. Naomi, you saved us. You saved everything. She let her forehead rest against his chest, breathing hard. No, she murmured. We saved it. Together. He didn't argue. He couldn't. Not when she had just done what no team of engineers, no million-dollar consultant, no executive in his company could ever do. She had saved him. The billionaire whose world had crashed, and she, the cleaning lady invisible to everyone, had been the one to put it back together. Slowly, she pulled away. We still need to make sure all the external nodes come back online. The hospitals, the shelters. They will, Graham said softly. And when they do, they'll know exactly who to thank. Naomi shook her head. That's not why I did it. I know, he said. But she didn't know how deeply he meant it. He watched her move toward the servers one last time, checking, confirming, making sure every system was safe. The confidence in her walk, the strength in her posture, the quiet fire in her eyes. It hit him like a wave. She wasn't a janitor. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't small. She was the strongest person he'd ever known. When Naomi finally turned back to him, exhaustion softening her features, Graham stepped closer. I need you to understand something, he said quietly. Tonight didn't just save my company. She blinked. What do you mean? Tonight saved me. Her lips parted, surprised, but before she could respond, his phone buzzed sharply. He looked down. A headline flashed across the screen from a national news outlet. Breaking. Major logistics network rescued from system failure. Unconfirmed reports of insider sabotage. Naomi read over his shoulder. Her eyes darkened. They're going to come for us now. Graham nodded. Let them. We have the truth. We have evidence. Naomi tightened her grip on the portable drive in her hand. And we have each other, he said. She looked at him. Long, steady, vulnerable. Then she nodded. Outside, dawn began to glow faintly beyond the storm clouds. Inside the server room, two people, once strangers separated by class, grief, and circumstance, stood shoulder to shoulder in the cold white light. Resurrected. Together. But neither of them knew that this victory was only the beginning, and that tomorrow, the entire nation would know the name Naomi Carter. Sunrise broke over Miami with a pale orange glow, streaking through the glass walls of Whitford Tower. The storm had passed, leaving raindrops clinging to the windows like tiny diamonds. Naomi stood alone in the lobby, her uniform still damp, her braid loosened from the chaos of the night. She looked out at the city, eyes heavy, heart full. Behind her, Graham approached with 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one gently. You should be home sleeping. Naomi shook her head. There's too much to do. Not right now, Graham said. For the first time in 12 hours, the building is quiet. She finally allowed a tired laugh. A soft one, barely there. Quiet's good. Before Graham could reply, his phone buzzed. Then Naomi's did. Then the lobby screens flickered on, unbidden. A news anchor's voice filled the room. Overnight, Whitford Logistics avoided a catastrophic collapse thanks to the intervention of an unnamed employee. Sources confirm internal sabotage. Federal agents are investigating. The CEO is expected to make an official statement within the hour. Naomi's eyes widened. Unnamed? For now, Graham said. But that's about to change. Security personnel hurried into the lobby, followed by executives, analysts, and legal teams. The air buzzed with tension. People whispered as they passed Naomi. Who's she? She's still wearing a janitor uniform. Why is she here? Did she cause it? No, didn't you hear? She saved the company. Graham raised his voice above the murmurs. Everyone to the main conference room. As they moved, Graham's senior executives fell in step beside him, stern-faced, skeptical, exhausted. One of them, a tall woman with sharp eyes, leaned toward him. Graham, is it true? A cleaning lady stopped a cyber attack? He didn't flinch. Call her what she is, a specialist. But her credentials, her actions, Graham interrupted, speak louder than credentials. The conference room filled fast. Cameras were set up by the media team. Reporters waited just outside the glass doors. The atmosphere was charged, electric. Naomi stood near the back, out of the way, clutching her portable drive like a shield. Then Graham stepped up to the podium. He didn't look like a billionaire right now. He looked like a man who'd been humbled, shaken, and put back together in one long night. Thank you for coming, he began. Last night, Whitford Logistics suffered the most severe internal attack in our company's history. Executives stiffened. Phones lifted to record. But we did not fall, Graham continued, for one reason only. He turned and extended his arm toward Naomi. The room fell into complete silence. Every head turned. Every camera followed. Every whisper died. Naomi froze. Please, Graham said gently. Come here. She hesitated, then stepped forward, the sound of her footsteps echoing through the breathless room. When she reached him, Graham rested a hand on her shoulder, not as a boss, but as an equal. This is Naomi Carter, he said, and she saved us. Gasps, murmurs, disbelief. The executives looked stunned. The legal team exchanged glances. A few people frowned, unsure how to process the sight of a woman in a janitor's uniform standing in the place of a senior engineer. Graham ignored all of it. She identified the breach. She traced the attack. She neutralized a logic bomb that would have destroyed thousands of medical supply lines across the country. She risked her life to stop sabotage committed by someone inside this building. Cameras flashed. Naomi blinked rapidly, overwhelmed. And as of this morning, Graham said, voice firm and steady, I am appointing her as Director of Infrastructure Security, effective immediately. The room erupted. What? You can't be serious? She's not qualified. She doesn't have a degree. Then let her resume start with, saved $1 billion corporation in one night, Graham snapped. If anyone wants to object, do it on your own time. She's earned more than the rest of us combined. Naomi's lips trembled. Graham, I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, he whispered. Just stand tall. The press was allowed inside next. Reporters rushed toward her. Ms. Carter, how did you know what to do? Were you trained for this? Why were you working as a janitor? Do you plan to speak to national news outlets? She felt dizzy, lost, exposed. Then Graham stepped beside her, grounding her with one quiet sentence. You deserve to be seen. And in that moment, she believed him. By noon, her name was trending nationwide. By evening, veteran tech specialists were calling her a miracle. By nightfall, federal agents had arrested Ethan Shaw at the airport, thanks to her digital trail. When the sun went down again, Naomi found herself sitting alone in a new office. Her office. A glass-walled room overlooking the Miami skyline, with a sleek desk and a badge that read, Naomi Carter, Director of Infrastructure Security. She stared at the name for a long time. A soft knock sounded. Graham stepped inside. You did more than save a company, he said. You changed it. Naomi swallowed. I don't know if I deserve all this, he smiled. You deserved it long before I realized who you were. She looked out at the city, alive, glowing, hopeful. Now what? She asked. Now, Graham said, you start your new life. But he didn't leave. He stayed in the doorway, hesitant, thoughtful, like he was searching for the right words. I have one more thing, he said. Naomi turned. What is it? He stepped closer, and in his eyes was something far deeper than gratitude, something that would change everything. Naomi, there's something I need to tell you before this day is over. Her breath caught. Of their lives. Was about to begin. Naomi stood there in her new office, the Miami skyline burning gold behind her, the glass reflecting a woman she barely recognized. Not a janitor, not an invisible night worker, not someone people brushed past without a second thought, a woman who had saved a company, a woman the entire country now knew by name. Graham stepped closer, the door clicking shut behind him. For the first time since she met him, he looked unsure, vulnerable, like he was afraid she might disappear if he said the wrong thing. Naomi, he said softly, this company survived because of you, but I didn't bring you here to talk business. She set her hands on the edge of the desk to steady herself. Then what did you want to talk about? He took a slow breath, the kind a man takes before stepping into something irreversible. You once told me you were used to being overlooked, he said. Invisible in rooms full of people, ignored even when you were trying to save lives. Naomi lowered her eyes. That's the world, Graham. But it shouldn't be, he replied. Not for someone like you. She didn't know how to respond. Her heart thudded in her chest with a quiet, trembling ache she hadn't felt in years. He continued, voice thick with sincerity. You didn't just fix my company. You reminded me what it means to fight for something, to care about something, to care about someone. Her breath caught, fragile as glass. Then his tone softened, almost breaking. Naomi, you saved my life too, and I can't pretend it was only professional. A silence settled between them, gentle, heavy, impossible to ignore. Naomi swallowed. Graham, I don't know what you're saying. I'm saying, he whispered, that I've never respected anyone the way I respect you. I've never trusted anyone the way I trust you, and I don't want you to walk into this new life alone. She closed her eyes. Overwhelmed by the weight of it all, by the journey from a woman cleaning floors at midnight to a woman a billionaire looked at like she hung the stars in the sky. He stepped back slightly, giving her room. But I need you to know this isn't pressure. You owe me nothing. Whatever you choose, I'm grateful you came into my life at all. Her eyes lifted, shimmering. Graham, she said, voice unsteady, I've worked in places where people wouldn't even say my name. I've cleaned floors for executives who wouldn't look at me unless they were angry. I've had years where the only time someone noticed me was to blame me for something I didn't do. He listened, motionless. But you, she paused, breath trembling. You're the first person in a long time who looked at me and didn't look through me. A tear slipped down her cheek, and she quickly wiped it away. That means something, more than you know. He moved slowly, carefully, until he was standing a foot away, respecting the distance she kept, but close enough she could feel the warmth of someone who didn't see her as small. "If it's too much," he whispered, "I'll step back." "It's not too much," she said. "It's new." He nodded, understanding. "Then we go slow." Naomi managed a small, broken smile. "Slow sounds good." For a moment, they stood together in the quiet glow of the late afternoon, the city humming beneath them, the world still buzzing with her name, her story, her triumph. But she was still Naomi, still the woman who rose from nothing, still the woman who believed kindness mattered more than titles. She took a deep breath. "There's somewhere I want to go before today ends." "Anywhere," Graham said. "I'll drive." She shook her head gently. "I need to go alone. Just this once." He hesitated, then nodded. "I'll be here when you're back." Naomi left the tower through the employee exit, not the front doors where media waited, not the executive garage with its gleaming cars. She took the bus, just like every other night. The city was warm and alive. Street vendors called out from sidewalks. Neon signs flickered above corner stores. A train rumbled overhead. Naomi walked the familiar cracked pavement of Liberty City, the modest neighborhood she still called home. And she stopped at the place she always stopped when life became too much. The community kitchen. The lights glowed soft and yellow from inside, casting warm shadows onto the street. The smell of cornbread and vegetable stew drifted through the open windows. Laughter echoed, real, tired, grateful laughter. Naomi stepped inside. A volunteer spotted her. "Naomi, you're off tonight, sweetheart." "Just passing through," she said with a small smile. "Thought I'd help serve." They handed her an apron. She tied it on with familiar motions. For the next hour, no cameras, no executives, no reporters, just Naomi ladling bowls of soup for people who needed warmth, people who needed to be seen, people who reminded her who she truly was. A little girl tugged her sleeve. "Miss Naomi? You look different today." Naomi knelt. "Different how, baby?" "You look shiny." Naomi laughed softly. "Do I?" "Yeah, like a superhero." Her chest tightened. "Maybe we're all superheroes a little bit." When the line grew shorter and her shift ended, Naomi stepped outside into the amber evening light. The air was warm, peaceful. Beside the door hung a small plaque with the kitchen's motto, "Kindness is a language the world never forgets." She traced the words with her fingers, and she whispered, "I finally believe that." A car slowed at the curb. Naomi turned. Graham stepped out, not in a suit, not with guards, not with the weight of a corporation on his shoulders. Just Graham. A man who had been broken. A man she helped rebuild. A man who saw her as something more than the world ever allowed her to be. "You ready?" he asked. She nodded. He opened the door for her, and as Naomi Carter took her seat beside him, the sun dipped low over Miami. Soft, golden, hopeful. Not a fairy tale. Not a prophecy. Just two lives crossing in the wreckage of a long night, choosing to rise together. And somewhere in the quiet hum of the city, a new truth settled over her. For the first time in her life, Naomi wasn't invisible. She was seen. She was valued. She was whole. And she was just getting started. If this story moved you even a little, drop a simple 1 in the comments so I know you're still here with me. Just a single number. That's all it takes. And if you want more stories like this, real stories of courage, kindness, redemption, and impossible second chances, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that button so you don't miss the next chapter of the human heart. The kind of stories that remind us that goodness still wins.